Listen carefully. This message is not for everyone. If you click this casually, you will miss it. If you're distracted, you will lose it. And if you delay, thinking you can come back later, this moment will pass you by. There are seasons in the Bible where God gave people time windows, not explanations. Moments where obedience mattered more than understanding. Moments where delay cost people everything. Right now, you are standing in one of those moments. This is not about money. This is not about luck. This is about what God releases when timing meets obedience. Some blessings don't wait. Some doors don't stay open. And some releases happen only once. You are not here by accident. You are here because heaven scheduled this moment. Only 10 minutes left doesn't mean panic. It means precision. Now listen, because what you do with this message determines what you carry forward. 1. God releases by timing, not by desire. Many people confuse intensity with obedience. They pray loudly, fast often, speak boldly, but when it's time to move, they hesitate. They want God's promises, but they want them on their schedule, not His. Scripture is painfully clear about this. God does not just promise things, He appoints moments. There are specific windows in time when heaven opens, and outside of those windows, even sincere faith can come up empty. Israel is the clearest example. They were promised the land, but an entire generation never entered it. Not because God changed His mind, but because they were out of alignment with His timing. They delayed, they doubted, they waited too long to trust. And when Jesus stood over Jerusalem, He didn't accuse them of unbelief. He didn't say they stopped praying. He said they missed their time of visitation. That tells us something uncomfortable but necessary. You can believe in God and still miss what God is doing now. Desire alone does not unlock heaven. Wanting something deeply does not move God's hand. Tears do not override timing. Sincerity does not replace obedience. What unlocks heaven is alignment, being in the right place, at the right moment, moving when God says, move. This is where many people stumble. They assume delay is wisdom. They assume hesitation is discernment. But in Scripture, when God speaks clearly, hesitation is not caution, it is resistance. Think about Noah. There was no rain when God told him to build. If Noah had waited until the storm clouds appeared, it would have been too late. The miracle wasn't surviving the flood. The miracle was starting early. God often speaks before things make sense. He gives instruction before evidence. He demands movement before clarity. And this is why timing separates the chosen from the comfortable. Chosen ones don't wait until everything feels safe. They don't wait until everyone agrees. They don't wait until fear disappears. They move when God says, now, even if it costs them certainty. You can want a blessing with all your heart and still miss it completely if you move late. Because God does not release on emotional intensity, He releases on divine order. There are moments when God's instruction carries urgency, not because He is impatient, but because the moment itself is fragile. Delay doesn't cancel the promise, it disqualifies the person from carrying it. This is why chosen ones take timing seriously. They understand that when God says, now, He is testing obedience, not enthusiasm. And when God says, now, hesitation is no longer neutral. It becomes disobedience dressed up as caution. That is the difference between those who witness God's releases and those who only hear stories about them later. 2. Delay is one of the enemy's favorite weapons. The enemy does not need to stop your faith. He just needs to slow your obedience. If Satan can't make you quit, he will make you wait. If he can't convince you to disbelieve, he will convince you to delay. Because delay feels harmless. It doesn't look like rebellion. It doesn't sound sinful. It often disguises itself as wisdom, patience, or waiting on God. But Scripture exposes delay for what it really is: missed alignment. Look at the pattern. When God speaks, He expects movement, not negotiation. Lot wasn't told to pray about leaving Sodom. He was told to leave immediately. And the moment he hesitated, angels had to physically pull him out. Even then, delay left a mark. Lot's wife didn't curse God. She didn't disbelieve the warning. She simply looked back a moment of hesitation, and it cost her everything. The enemy understands something many believers ignore. Timing determines outcome. That's why delay is such an effective weapon. It keeps you spiritually active, but practically stagnant. You feel busy, but nothing changes. You feel faithful, but you remain stuck. Delay convinces you that later, obedience is still obedience. But in Scripture, obedience has an expiration date. Think about Pharaoh. He didn't reject God outright. He kept saying, "Tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll let them go. Tomorrow I'll change. Tomorrow I'll listen." And tomorrow became judgment. Chosen ones understand this. When God gives clear instruction, waiting is not neutral. Every delayed step increases resistance. Every postponed decision strengthens fear. Every excuse gives the enemy more room to interfere. That's why moments feel heavier right before release. That pressure is not panic, it's urgency. It's heaven signaling that the window is narrowing. The enemy doesn't need to close the door. He just needs you to hesitate until it closes on its own. This is why Jesus' language was often immediate. "Follow me now. Leave your nets now. Go and sin no more now." Those who delayed did not get a second invitation. Delay costs more than people realize. It doesn't always bring punishment, it brings replacement. God moves on to the next willing vessel, not because he is cruel, but because his purposes are bigger than individual comfort. Chosen ones are not faster because they are fearless. They are faster because they understand the cost of waiting. They know this truth deeply. The most dangerous word in spiritual warfare is later, because later is where obedience goes to die. 3. The biggest releases are hidden in small windows. Most people are waiting for something dramatic, a loud sign, a clear announcement, a moment that feels big enough to justify movement. That's not how God works. In Scripture, God consistently hides massive releases inside small, ordinary-looking moments. Moments that are easy to dismiss. Moments that don't feel worthy of urgency. Moments that look insignificant unless you're paying attention. Naaman almost lost his healing because the instruction felt too simple. Wash 7 times. In a river he didn't respect. His pride told him the miracle should match the size of his problem. But God attached healing to a small, humbling act of obedience. The disciples almost missed the feeding miracle because they focused on what they lacked. 5 loaves, 2 fish, not enough, too small. But Jesus didn't ask for more, he asked for what was already there. This is how God tests discernment. He watches who honors the moment instead of judging its size. Many people miss their release because they are waiting for confirmation that feels proportional. They expect big outcomes to come with big signals, but heaven often whispers before it shouts. The 1 billion is not about money. It represents weight, influence, impact, inheritance. And God rarely releases weighty things through dramatic entrances. He releases them through a quiet instruction, a sudden nudge, a moment you could easily scroll past, a decision that doesn't feel urgent unless you understand timing. Small windows close fast. That's the danger. Big doors stay open longer because everyone sees them. Small doors require attention, and once missed, they're gone. Think about the wise and foolish virgins. Same invitation, same expectation. The difference was not belief. It was readiness in a small moment. The oil wasn't dramatic, but without it, the door closed. Chosen ones train themselves to respect small instructions. They don't measure obedience by excitement. They don't wait for emotional confirmation. They move because God spoke, not because the moment feels impressive. This is where many believers fail. They say, "That can't be it. That's too small. That doesn't feel like God." But God often hides his greatest releases behind instructions that offend human logic. A step that feels premature, a move that feels uncomfortable, a decision that doesn't come with applause. If you dismiss the small moment, you disqualify yourself from the large outcome. Chosen ones understand this deeply. If God is testing your response, the instruction will rarely feel grand. And if you wait for a bigger sign, you will miss the window entirely. 4. Chosen ones feel pressure but move anyway. If you feel pressure when a moment approaches, that is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that something real is at stake. Pressure is not fear. Pressure is weight. In Scripture, pressure always increases right before responsibility is transferred. Right before David faced Goliath, the tension was thick. Right before Esther approached the king, the risk was absolute. Right before Jesus went to the cross, the pressure was so intense that he sweat blood. None of these moments felt peaceful. None of them felt convenient. But every one of them was necessary. Many believers misunderstand pressure. They assume that if God is in it, it should feel calm. But calm usually comes after obedience, not before it. Pressure appears when heaven is about to trust you with something heavier than you've carried before. And weight always produces resistance. This is why the enemy increases noise during critical moments. Doubt gets louder. Distractions multiply. Old fears resurface. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're getting close. Chosen ones don't wait for pressure to disappear. They move through it. They understand that comfort is not confirmation, and discomfort is not rejection. Think about Peter stepping out of the boat. The wind didn't stop when Jesus called him. The waves didn't calm first. The conditions stayed hostile, and Peter had to step anyway. Pressure tests motive. It exposes whether you want safety or obedience. Most people back away at this point. They say, "I'll do it when things settle down." But things never settle down before a breakthrough. Waiting for pressure to leave is another form of delay. And delay always has a cost. Chosen ones move with shaking hands. They move without full clarity. They move while feeling the weight of consequence, because they know this truth. If God called you to it, the pressure is not a warning, it is preparation. Pressure refines focus. It strips distractions. It forces decision. And when you move under pressure, heaven responds. Not because you were fearless, but because you were faithful. 5. God releases to those who accept responsibility. God does not release power to spectators. He releases it to stewards. Every time God moves significantly in Scripture, he places responsibility before reward. Before Abraham received inheritance, he had to leave everything familiar. Before Moses saw miracles, he had to confront Pharaoh. Before the disciples carried authority, they were sent out with instructions and accountability. God never releases something heavy into careless hands. This is where many people secretly withdraw. They pray for increase, influence, blessing, but they avoid ownership. They want the outcome without the burden. They want the result without the responsibility. But God does not bless irresponsibility. He entrusts responsibility with blessing. That's why the parable of the talents matters so much. The servant who hid what he was given didn't lose it because he sinned. He lost it because he refused responsibility. Fear is not the issue. Refusal is. God measures readiness by stewardship, not by enthusiasm. Excitement impresses people. Faithfulness impresses heaven. Chosen ones understand this. If God is about to release something bigger, he will first test how you handle what's already in your hands, how you manage time, how you handle truth, how you treat small assignments, how you respond when no one is watching. Responsibility is the filter. It separates those who want attention from those who can be trusted. This is why some people pray for years and see nothing change. Not because God is silent, but because God is waiting for maturity. Responsibility costs comfort. It removes excuses. It demands consistency. And that's exactly why many people don't receive. They want God's release to improve their life, not redefine it. Chosen ones accept responsibility before results appear. They move as if the release already matters. They prepare as if the weight is already real. And when God sees that posture, He releases. Not because you asked louder, but because you became trustworthy. This was not a motivational message. It was a moment of clarity. Some people will leave this video unchanged, not because they didn't hear, but because they chose delay. And delay always feels harmless until the door closes. If this stirred something in you, that wasn't emotion. That was recognition. God does not shout forever. He speaks clearly. Then He waits to see who moves. What He is releasing is not random. It requires timing. It demands responsibility. And it will not be carried by hesitation. You were not given this message to feel inspired. You were given it to decide. Move when God says move. Honor small instructions. Accept the wait before the reward. And do not confuse waiting with wisdom. The window is open, but it is not permanent. This is your moment. Act accordingly.